Welcome everybody to the fifth, can you believe it, the fifth annual Lighthouse evening, and tonight we're entitling it Love at the Lighthouse. We chose love this year not just because it's Valentine's Eve, lest you've forgotten, but more because at Lighthouse love seems to be a word that we seem to infiltrate every conversation that we have. We fall in love with you and your stories as candidates. We fall in love and become very passionate about the businesses that we represent. We find ourselves becoming cultural and emotional matchmakers, hell-bent on finding the best and perfect fit. We spend considerable time giving love to some of those that feel a little bit unlovable. And equally, we are known for our tough love, whose temporarily acting out a little less lovable behaviour may come to the core. But we strive to show enduring love to those whose brilliance and respectfulness deserves our loyalty. And above all, we try and show our care 24/7 to all those trusting in us to guide and to represent them. We don't take that trust lightly, and it is simply amazing and humbling to see so many of you here tonight. It makes the late nights listening and the weekend calls in pyjamas, because we all do them, more worthwhile. And we promise to find a bigger venue next year, because I think tonight we're going to share some news perspectives and some research results, but I know that it's going to become a hot room and you kind of want to get on with drinking and dancing. So we appreciate you standing. Sinead and I are all that sits between canapes, endless booze, and a very talented DJ Loz, who, ladies, is allegedly single, so hold on to the person next to you if you must, and we will go as fast as we can. 2013 was quite a year. Snowden loudly blew the whistle. Miley Cyrus proudly twerked. Amazon threatened the drones. Andy Murray finally won at Wimbledon. Reverend Flowers made Pete Doherty look like an absolute amateur. And we gained 2 royal babies in George and Northwest. We also lost 2 famous leaders in Margaret Thatcher and then Nelson Mandela, with very differing reactions. But for our industry, there was also quite a lot of news. Omnipube, as the very gorgeous Paul Lawson has mischievously named it, was formed and is forming and possibly caught Sorrel off guard. The OFT finally declared their decision on global radio. Our very own Claudine Collins was on The Apprentice. CBS Outdoor was finally sold to Platinum Equity. Twitter IPO'd, and Bruce loved that picture of him in the Evening Standard. But Hainsey finally not only got a girlfriend, but he actually admitted to it on Facebook. For Lighthouse, it was also quite a year. Our ambition to positively change the reputation of headhunters continued, we hope, to resonate. In 2013, we undertook over 200 board-level searches and created, we hope, over 200 victorious partnerships. And we are proud of every single one of them, even you, Tim Hipperson, because we really think you are brilliant. We added further trusted advisors to our team: Ben McKee, psychotherapist; Judy James, the dame of all things body language; Bev Clark, systemic psychotherapist; Dr. Malik, our 24/7 private doctor, we all need one of those; Jo Hagger, coach and all-round wonderful woman; and Caroline Marshall, PR advisor, producer, and human being of the highest order. We really do believe that our role as counsel to clients and an agent to the New World talent is to be here to support you all through every part of your career and your companies. And our recommended partners are here to support you too, just in that moment that you might need them, as we continue to expand TLC Bespoke. We further rolled out our benchmarking, offering bespoke and real-world and contextual knowledge of salaries, structures, and contemporary factual view of the advertising fraternity. We continue to expand our presence in New York, and the company is now fully incorporated, and the team builds outwards. We also grew in London, and we welcome the very wonderful Ivor Falvey, who joined us from C Squared, Layla Selva, who joined us from management consultancy Glenfern, and the very gorgeous Tony Samways, who joined us from Glue Isabar and almost worked for Mark Cramner instead. Could you believe it? With this growth, we're about to move to bigger offices later this month, and we continue to build the Lighthouse brief by individual brief. As you know, psychology is at the centre of our approach to evaluating talent and is in fact very much part of the credentials that we want to deepen at the Lighthouse. Sinead and I became fully qualified psychometric testers and evaluators via StrengthScope. Sinead has also embarked on becoming a qualified mediator and dispute resolution specialist, recognised by the Law Society and the Bar Council, and I continue my MA in psychology at Regent's University, en route to becoming a clinically qualified psychotherapist. And yes, we are positively saving up for matching couches. You can shout on hers and you can cry on mine, and that's how it's going to work. We also quietly tested and will soon launch at the back of the end of this quarter a new product called Talent Beam for CMOs who are looking to change agencies, offering clients at pitch stage a benchmarking and perspective on the pitch teams proposed by the respective agencies and an opinion on the individuals proposed on the charge sheet before you make your critical decision. With over 8,000 individuals known to us at the Lighthouse, we certainly have an informed view. That's enough about us. What's important is how we start to write our future together as an industry in 2014. As you know, the Lighthouse is continually fascinated by you. And every year we interview you and we question you in our research study to see how you're feeling. This year, once again, we've taken your temperature, but we've also tested some hypotheses that Sinead and I have been looking at and going through throughout the last year. And we'll take you through our findings in just a second. But before Sinead does, let's hand over and see how you're feeling about the year ahead.
First up, I think it's going to be a great year. I think there's been so much innovation already. I think as agencies bring out their DMPs, I think that will radically change the way we operate as companies. The level of insight and the level of knowledge it will bring to bear will be really quite game-changing.
It would help fulfil my ambitions as a creative person who works in the business to try and be more creative. I spend a lot of time in meetings and I'm not creative as much as I used to be. And so I have to do a lot of stuff outside of work, but I'd like to try and bring some of that creative energy into work.
There's a real optimism in the air. After a few years now of I was a bit depressed and wondering when it's going to come back. There's a real sense, I think, particularly in the marcoms sector, that this could be a year that's going to turn around.
This is the year, hopefully, that media will realise its opportunity on its diversified services and its future income lines and the opportunity to grow through all of the insight, information and technologies they're now partnering with.
We are feeling pretty optimistic. So as a group, as Maxis, Group M and WPP, we're looking for at least 6% market growth, and I think the UK will be a key factor in that. Two reasons for that, really. The Football World Cup will help drive that, and for other markets across the world, the Winter Olympics will also help drive that growth. Maxis UK, we'll be looking for more than 6% growth, double-digit growth. I won't go into the numbers, but we'll be building off the back of a very successful 2013.
14 for us is repeat of 13. We had a fantastic year from a Guardian perspective. We grew our digital revenues, we got our mojo back, very excited about what we've achieved. And I think we just want to repeat the same. And I think that's always very difficult to say, you know, we just now have to produce a second album and everyone will then expect us to do more. And we're really confident of that.
Professionally, I'm just hoping that the merger goes as well as we all hope it does, and that it gives us an exciting opportunity as it seems to be at this point in time. It's very exciting times on the Comedy Group at the moment.
From a personal perspective, I'll be trying to focus a bit more on my global side of my Maxis role. So I was in Shanghai 2 weeks ago and found it absolutely fascinating and slightly terrifying at the same time. I think they truly will take over the world. There's a very clear government agenda for East state-owned industries going out into the world, and we actually have a high percentage of state-owned industry business over in China, and I think that will be really interesting. So as a global business, we're looking very much at an East-out strategy, but we're feeling really optimistic.
Clearly, where the audience goes is one of the most significant challenges, and we started off with digital first and then it becomes, is it mobile first, etc. So mobile for everybody is going to be the big game changer. Look at Facebook's share price in the last 24 hours will demonstrate what value can be derived from getting your mobile strategy right, and we have to do that. But because with The Guardian we have to think about design and we have to think about interface and UX and all of those wonderful things that makes our news accessible.
I think there was a general sort of feeling not only are the budgets coming back to television, but there's a real sense that television, despite of all of the changes that have happened technologically wise and within the advertising sector, actually television has been amazingly robust.
So I think personally, I see hopefully Arsenal winning the Premiership for a change after several years of having been in the Gobi Desert. I'm hoping we're going to be signing something in the January transfer window that's going to see us through and deliver success and deliver a trophy, which would be superb.
I would like to shift some flab, get rid of my bitch tits.
And at a more personal level, I'm looking forward to contributing to the UK economy with yet another house build. My husband's in the audience. He's told me it'll be ready by April. David? And I've committed to learning to play the piano, inspired by Alan Rushbridger, which I'm now really terrified about because I can't read music and I've never played the piano.
I've had my prostate exam, that was all very nice. Maybe that's something that happens to men of a certain age, 50. But I would just like to keep enjoying it and still find ways of being interested. That's the most important thing for me.
I think it's going to be incredibly hard to follow that without referring to my own bitch tits, but I will do my very best. As you know, each year we undertake the Lighthouse Talent Survey, which has once again been ratified by Work Research, so thank you, Stuart, somewhere in the room tonight. This year, over 300 senior leaders responded, including many of you here tonight. As ever, if you'd like a full report, please talk to any member of our team. We'd be delighted to send it to you. This year, we ventured some very specific hypotheses to ratify some patterns that we've been observing, namely around optimal leadership, how long will you be loved for, love on loan, or more specifically, talent on loan, is it better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all? Or more crudely, do you get a better performance, if you know what I mean, when you cohabit rather than marry? And the equity epidemic, are you marrying for money? Are you in a loveless relationship because you think there might be a big pot of gold on the horizon? We wanted to test our thinking on all this and a bit more, but to kick us off, let's first talk about how you are feeling. Encouragingly, and as brilliantly illuminated by Barry, Lindsay and the rest of our wonderful contributors, you're feeling much more optimistic than in previous years. Those of you feeling professionally fulfilled is about on par with last year. But those of you feeling positive about growth prospects for the coming year has risen from 36 to 60%. And those of you feeling absolutely buoyant has leapt from 5 to 14%. It's always a surprise to see so many people thinking about leaving our industry. But year on year, this figure is static, which might suggest some stability. What is interesting is that 37% of us are thinking about starting our own businesses. We know entrepreneurship goes hand in hand with a recession, and indeed this seems to be borne out by the results. Succession planning has long been a hot topic for the Lighthouse over the past few years, and unfortunately, a third of us still feel this is not being tackled well. Does this prove HR definitely needs a space at the board table? The good news is that there's definitely been a notable shift from those feeling that succession management in their business was average to successful. Here's a good one. We've for some time been noticing a shift in the appetite you have for working at certain types of businesses, particularly media agencies. A whopping 35% would like to see their next move to be to a media owner, whilst only 10% specifically favoured a media agency. Perhaps not as statistically compelling, but one of you ventured dry stone waller as your next career choice. And we'll keep an eye on that for the future. In terms of the elements that inspire your next move, you're still seeking growth and leadership and opportunities, not just simply cash package. However, we do know from our conversations that equity has become a much louder factor, and we'll talk about that to follow. We covered a myriad of topics in our research, and we've only got a limited time to do any of them justice tonight. So I'd like to take you through the 3 hypotheses I mentioned, as we hope these might give you a little cause for thought when you leave the room tonight, albeit fueled by the odd limoncello shot. We're doing a lot of work in the US market, where fixed-term contracts, as you will know, are much more prevalent. And we're also seeing different behaviours in the leaders that we encountered there. So we wanted to explore this further and see if we could really prove a link or a relationship between those two things. We also feel that the nervousness around job mobility created by recession may mean that we've lost confidence and become a bit shyer to impact. Guaranteeing both role and reward for a period of time might make braver, bolder leaders. So first we asked, what's the optimal term for a leader? Just how long have you got? 85% of you believe you have up to 3 years. But be warned, when asked what you believe is a reasonable time for stakeholders to see a visible difference, 83% of you state just 1 year. The days of having 3 years to turn a business around, as I think we suspect, are long over. So you've only got 3 years to deliver and just 1 year to prove yourself. Let's look at the potential impact if you knew you only had 3 years. When asked how you would feel about taking a leadership position that had a fixed 3-year term and a fully guaranteed package, 67% of you said you would feel excited, liberated, inspired. Only 13% ventured caution, and let's face it, it's probably the CFOs in the room tonight. When asked how your behaviour might change, 58% said you would behave with greater boldness, 56% said you would be braver in challenging the status quo, and 45% said they would be more ambitious for the business. When asked what you would have done in your current position last year had your package been guaranteed, 18% said nothing. But have a look at the answers given. And just have a look at the screen. The results suggest that we will see you at your very bravest if your financial package is secured. So, if you can make your leaders feel secured with a guaranteed package and term, is it worth exploring? Indeed, the rise and the demand and the talk about non-exec directorships suggests there is a craving for senior leaders to have an environment where people can say what they actually feel instead of sitting tight and maintaining the status quo. And are leaders braver with opinions because of the upturn in economic confidence? If the market's becoming more positive, perhaps it's time to seize that too and explore how term and reward might further harness high performers. And what about our premise around leaders on loan? Is it better to have loved and lost? How would we feel about having access to the best of breed talent for a more limited period of time? Be that, a brilliant creative or a CSO when you've got to move, a pitch that's really going to move the dial.
The thing about borrowing talent and about full-time talent, I think it's changed massively over the last 20 years. I've been doing it 30 years now. If you were freelance in the 80s, it was because you were shit. Whereas now, if you're freelance, I think it's because you're very, very smart. And if you're full-time in an office, it's probably because you're a bit of a donkey. And the thing that's very interesting now is you've got thousands of people, all of whom have really, really specific talents, and they can tap into you as and when. And I think anybody that's sort of in control of their talent a little bit more than I just want to work full-time in an office is king.
Talent is the most important part of everything that we do. I think the models of hiring people versus borrowing them, I think is a really interesting thought, because I think when we speak to particularly the digital native young community, they don't want to commit to anything longer than 6 months, let alone 18 months. So I think if you had the opportunity to get someone who could bring huge value to our mobile strategy, or was a coder in that mobile space, or was someone who could innovate on behalf of our clients and you could extract value out of them over that 18-month period, I don't think that's any bad thing. And the days of people coming into the office and say, I see my entire career to be seen out at The Guardian, it's just no longer the case.
Do I think it's a good idea to take people on loan for short periods of time? Yes, we've always believed that's a good idea, but it's very difficult in practice to match the theory, because you are taking people for a short period of time and consistency is difficult in terms of the work they work on. So if it's client facing, for instance, to put them in front of a client and they do a great job, and then the client wants them to continue, you're suddenly facing a difficult dilemma. That doesn't stop us doing it. We do it now, not as much as we should, but I always think it's a great idea.
If we think about longer term placements of 18 months to 2 years, I think that's a great thing to do, actually. I think it makes people highly motivated, very outcome oriented. I think you can set super clear objectives for people on a shorter term contract, and I think it's a positive thing for us to be doing.
We come across lots and lots of talent that we might utilise for 2 weeks, for a month, for a year, and I think you've just got to take advantage of it. I think ultimately all you want to do is you want to have the best people at your disposal, and if you can get them for 6 months before somebody else gets them, it's your advantage. That entrepreneurial spirit is rife at the minute, and that's the really interesting thing, but people don't want to engage full time. What they want to do, I'll have a little bit of that. They want to be quite promiscuous, and it's a nice situation for them to be in because they're in control, but it's harder for an employer.
84% of you said you would be willing to hire an exceptional talent on a short-term basis. And this is something certainly Jed Glanville has caught hold of. leading to the recent launch of Glanville & Co. Our message is be open-minded. We already know that you have a limited time to make a difference, so whether you buy them in, you borrow them, you steal them, just get them into your buildings. We're already encouraging our clients to think more laterally around term, and in the last year we've actually secured a number of fixed-term contracts with some brilliant individuals, just so our clients can get access to them. So finally, let's have a look at our third hypothesis. And this is around the supposition that we are in the midst of an equity epidemic. Is the very tool that is meant to retain talent actually creating malaise? As leaders, 83% of you have either had equity, have it now, or have been promised it as part of your package. When those approached with equity were approached about a new role, nearly a third had either delayed a job move, altered their career plan, or stayed in a job in order to retain equity, stock or options. But the real bombshell is that nearly 40% of you think there are people in your businesses today who are less motivated than they have been in the past, but who are staying simply to retain their company equity. Be warned, in some businesses, the quality of talent is on the slide. We absolutely understand you have to offer equity to secure talent, and quite frankly, we're often in the middle of those negotiations. But by the same token, you're making your leadership team stagnate. A leader who put an amazing performance in for a couple of years can easily lose momentum, and this can take lots of time to become apparent, especially in larger organisations where the impact of the brand may overshadow the impact of the individual. So before I finish, let's just hear what a few of you got to say on the matter.
So I think the one that seduces people an awful lot is equity. And I think it's fantastic to have an equity plan. But I think people sometimes get seduced for the wrong reasons, that I've got money so I'll stay because I've got equity in the company, and equally for the company side, that some people stay who really have not performed or are not working to what it is that you brought them into the company to do. So you end up not doing anything, and not doing something is a mistake for both parties.
I think as people become more senior, we would seek to commit them to the company. So I work within a Uber structure of Group M and WPP, so that wouldn't be equity, but it would certainly be long-term incentive plans that involve stock and shares, and you are then encouraged to keep that stock beyond vesting period to show your commitment back to the business.
For senior talent, equity is really important because while in most cases senior talent gets to participate in the success of the company because they have a great role in the success of the company, I think equity at certain levels at this point has become table stakes, certainly in our business in the technology space.
I've had situations where people you interview them and they come in and they say, I want 20% of the company, and you're like, fuck off, you're not going to get it. This business has got a fair dollop of mercenaries who know that they can come in and they can ask for equity and they'll get it, and it'll be worth something. They might have a 5-year plan. There aren't enough missionaries, and I'm just a missionary. I like doing things because it makes me happy. Equity is one of those, it's a really odd conversation because you're talking about something that's not worth anything, but it feels, when it's your company, it's in there or up there rather than on a bit of paper.
So, fascinating suggestions perhaps, and ones that we hope to dig further into with a broader study later this year, potentially the Price Waterhouse. But for now, I hope it's some food for thought for all of you. Let's quickly run through the tabloid section of our research that we know you love so much. First up is, which business did you feel really performed in 2013? And as Arif wrote in his column just today, companies that really stand for something appear to be winning. With ITV in first place, followed by Twitter and by Facebook. But the hypocrisy is already about to hit, because when we asked the businesses you felt could have performed better, Facebook strikes once again. But in tune with our belief that businesses' success is disproportionately linked to leadership, we then asked which individual leader you felt had performed particularly well in 2013. And it was no surprise that Bruce Daisley at Twitter, Fru Hazard at ITV again, and Steve Hatch, who has all to play for, moving from MEC to Facebook. We will see what happens next year. Congratulations to them. When we asked which company you would be inspired to work for in 2014, the startling response was all media owners, every single one. And with the themes now fully clear, when we asked which person you'd most like to work for in 2014, the entrepreneurship really kicked in, with a huge proportion citing yourself. You all want to start your own businesses, followed by the king and queen of media, Prue Hazlitt and Bruce Daisley. Now, the most disastrous hire of the year is always the hot potato. And trust me, we had some vicious responses this year, mostly citing the trading heads. Funny that, hey. But in the last 12 months, the person who you think has done the worst job, oh, I wish I could really say. But the poor person is David Moyes, love him, from Man United. And so the final statistic for the night is this year's fantasy hire. Now, as you know, this title was fiercely fought last year between Sir Martin Sorrell and Bruce Daisley, and this year the nominations featured Nigella Lawson, Pope Francis, Steven Spielberg, President Putin, will.i.am, Beyoncé and Alex Ferguson. But as you know, there can only be one winner. Who is it going to be?
Hello everyone, thank you for voting me, Bruce Daisley, your fantasy hire for 2014. Very flattering. Sorry I can't be there this evening. Not least because I wanted to look after that poor charming singer Bluey from last year who received savage treatment, I thought, on the evening. What a lovely guy. Thank you very much, really appreciate it. Have a good night.
So congratulations to Bruce, who, being the modern man, is actually at home tonight looking after his children. Equality may finally have arrived. Now, the last two things. Remember, 31st of March sees the kick-off to Advertising Week Europe. Matt Schechner is here tonight. I've banned him from speaking, but he is in the audience, so watch out. If you look around the room, you will also see the wonderful work that Karmarama have produced for us, which is visually stunning and will be burning your eyeballs thanks to all our wonderful outdoor partners over the next 4 weeks. Make sure you have your ticket and your businesses involved, aligned and ready. You're talking to Eulogy, who are doing a fabulous job for us on the PR. It's going to be one hell of a week. We are fully booked in at BAFTA, St James's Palace, the House of Lords, Coco, Scala, Ronnie Scott's, Kensington Palace. We are everywhere. And the Lighthouse will be taking part in a very special session this year entitled The Unspoken Truth, with Gok Wan, Judy James and Oliver James, showing you as a leader how to control the transmissions that you secretly make. But finally, in honour of our fantasy hire, we would like you to join us with a bit of love tonight and indulge with some Twitter love. Tonight, our brilliant team and slightly naughty team at the Lighthouse has set up a Twitter feed for you to contribute to. So if you'd like to send an anonymous tweet tonight to someone out there in the universe, we will make it happen for you anonymously. Someone you'd like to hire, someone you'd love to borrow, someone you'd love to steal, someone you already work with who you'd like to show your appreciation for, or someone you just fancy the pants off. The feed is up. With special thanks to Andy at Stackler, and for one night only, you will be untraceable. So tonight, our Lighthouse message is this. As a leader, you only have a year to impress, and up to 3 years to complete the task, so for goodness sake, get on with it. If you seek greater bravery from your leadership team, offer greater stability to that team. Love on loan may take your business a little further, and be mindful of marrying for money and then letting yourself go, like Claire from Steps. So please stay and have a drink, and who knows, even a dance, and let's celebrate not just the notion of love in the room tonight, but also the friendship that we collectively share. After all, they say, a friend is someone who knows all about you and still loves you. Good night.